What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Home Field Podcast. So in today's video, we're going to recap the main card that we had from UFC 257 last night. So we had the main card feature Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. Poirier being the number 2 contender in the division and Conor McGregor being the number 4 contender in the division. Now, for full transparency, before the fight occurred last night, I thought that Conor would win this matchup between Poirier. Simply because I thought prior to the fight, I thought Conor looked in great shape. I thought he handled the weight cut extremely well. And just really the confidence that he had in what he was saying during the press conferences prior to the fight. I just thought that Conor was in a great space, physically and mentally. And I thought that it would continue into this fight against Poirier. But after the events that happened last night, Dustin Poirier absolutely shattered any of those expectations that I had for this fight. Dustin Poirier was absolutely sensational last night. He had an outstanding performance and definitely worthy of a performance of the night bonus from Dana. So going into the actual fight, I thought Conor did pretty well in the first round. I thought his striking was on point. I thought his hands were really quick, and I thought he was able to get some really solid jabs in on Dustin and really get Dustin off of his spot a few times. Dustin was able to get a couple shots in there, but I thought overall for the first round, I thought Conor won that first round probably like a 10-9 on the scorecard. And then as we went into the second round, the one thing that really stood out to me were the leg kicks that Dustin had on Conor's legs. Those leg kicks really proved to be the difference maker as far as I'm concerned for this fight. It really seemed like Conor couldn't handle those leg kicks, and you could tell just by the way that he was taking the impact from those leg kicks. He really had to struggle to stand up after some of those leg kicks. And those leg kicks were on point from Dustin. And the way that I saw it, it really ended all the momentum that Conor had in the first round. And all the momentum shifted towards Dustin at that point. And then once those leg kicks really started to work effectively against Conor, Dustin was able to get a couple good jabs in there, a couple good strikes. He got Conor up against the wall, was able to land a couple more strikes to the face, ended up knocking Conor to the ground. And then Dustin was able to basically just rain shots towards Conor's face. And then Herb Dean called off the fight with a couple minutes left in the second round of the fight. But like I said, Dustin absolutely deserved one of those performance of the night bonuses. He was outstanding. As far as I'm concerned, he had this was the biggest fight of his career. Well, actually, I can't even say that this is the biggest fight of his career. When he was going up against Khabib, he was going for the title. But this was a huge moment for Dustin, probably the biggest one that he's had since going for that title shot against Khabib. And it definitely puts him in contention to go for a title shot at this point in the lightweight division. But we'll kind of see how that belt situation works out with Khabib in the near future, which is what I want to get to next. So what are the long-term ramifications for the lightweight division after this fight between Dustin and Conor? The way that I see it, I don't think Conor did himself any favors last night. It's probably going to take him another 2 or 3 fights to get back into any sort of title contention. And he'd have to win all of those fights to have a shot at the belt in maybe a year or 2 from now. So he's definitely behind the 8 ball to get a title shot. Dustin, like I said, he's got a decent shot to get the title at this point. But, I mean, Dana has really been trying to push Khabib to come back out of retirement and contend against one of these guys that are in the lightweight division. And as far as I'm concerned, I just don't see that. If you just look down the roster of the lightweight division, he's beaten all of these guys, and he's done it fairly convincingly. I mean, look at the last couple fights that he's had. The last fight that he had was against Justin Gaethje, and he pretty much handled Justin fairly easily without really any sort of issues whatsoever. The fight before that, he basically single-handedly destroyed Dustin Poirier in about 3 rounds. I mean, it got to the point where Dustin couldn't even get him off of him. Once Khabib got Dustin on the ground, Dustin couldn't even get back up. And then the fight before that, he was going up against Conor, and Khabib handled him pretty well. And you can make a valid argument that Khabib hasn't even lost a round to these guys. You can maybe make a case that he lost one to Conor, but outside of that, he's been dominant against these guys. And if you just look down the rest of the roster, after Conor, Dustin, and Justin Gaethje, you got Charles Oliveira. He's at the number 3 spot. You got Tony Ferguson at number 5. And you got Dan Hooker at number 6. Dan Hooker just lost a co-main event last night, so he's not really somebody that I'm expecting Khabib to go up against. Tony Ferguson is at the end of his career, and he got absolutely destroyed by Charles Oliveira the last fight that he had. And you can maybe say that Charles could have a shot to go against Khabib, but Oliveira's best win is against Tony Ferguson, and Tony's 35, 36 years old. So I wouldn't even know if that's really an impressive win for Oliveira's career at this point. So if I'm Khabib at this point, is it worth my time going up against guys that I've already beaten? I don't think so. I just think the gap between Khabib and everybody else is about this wide. It's just, I don't even think it's close. I think for Khabib to go back in there, there had to be somebody who would really challenge him, really get him to focus on finding ways to beat them. But looking at the roster in the lightweight division, I just don't see it. So, like I said, Dustin's a great fighter, but Dustin's already lost to Khabib. And he lost to Khabib pretty easily. Khabib handled him fairly easily in that fight. And that was over a year ago. So, for me, I just don't see it. I think at this point, Khabib should probably just give up the belt and allow somebody else in this division to claim it. If there were somebody here to point to have a shot against Khabib, I would have already said it. It's just, I don't see it here. So I think in Khabib's best interest, I think it's just best for him to retire. I mean, to really stay retired at this point and not even worth wasting his time going up against somebody that he's already beaten in the past. And that's just my opinion on the matter at this point. But I don't want to discredit Dustin Poirier's victory last night. He was sensational last night. Well-deserved. He is probably going for a title shot at this point if the belt is given up by Khabib. But time will tell as we move forward with those developments.